Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Tony Dudzik, Pick Guardian.
Jared Brandon Wild Pickups.
Hey everybody, it's me, Todd Novak. Welcome to the Guitar Knobs, a lovely special edition. Jared, what is this tonight?
This is Recording at Home 101.
Awesome. Jared loves the 101s, as do we all. We've got a special guest tonight who's going to help us out on this quest to find out how best to handle your recording needs at home, no matter what your setup is. We're gonna go through a couple scenarios, several scenarios, and talk about some really cool gear that can help you be awesome. Isn't that right, Eric Merrow?
Yes, it is. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. Eric Merrow, former guest and general awesome guy. People, where you need to go check him out. So, Eric, where can people find you?
You can find me on YouTube. It's youtube.com/Eric Merrow. I'm also on Instagram at Eric Merrow. And then I also have a new page that I started, Lefty Guitars Daily.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh, awesome, man.
That new channel is all right.
Well, thank you.
I
think you guys just got canceled.
Yeah,
right. We left.
But yes. Oh, that's very good, Jared. Wait, nice parlay there.
That's right.
All right. Oh, Tony, bring it home. All right.
This is
jeez.
the remainder of the conversation.
Yes, we have lost our direction. No? Okay.
No.
All right. That was fun. That was pretty fun. My face kind of hurts from smiling. I appreciate it. I miss you guys.
Group hug.
We haven't seen each other, all three of us together in months.
Yeah.
It's not been super fun. So
can't wait to get the band back together.
Yeah, right. Soon. It's gonna. I feel like it'll happen soon. So, anyways, let's get on with this, shall we? We need to thank a few people, or not to. Well, let's thank them. This is the announcement.
Let's thank a company.
Yeah, let's thank a company. Road. No.
That one harmonized.
Jeez Louise, we're off to a start already.
It's a barbershop.
Rode mics, thank you so much for providing the Rodecaster Pro, our beautiful machine that we get this done with every week. We love it, and we're so appreciative of it, and you make some dang good stuff. And also the Procaster microphone. It's good stuff.
You're yummy.
Getting the voices all good and goody.
Makes it sound like
I'm pretty sure that's what it says on the box too.
Right.
Anyways,
in the studio.
Yes. Much thanks to Rode Mics for supporting our show, being just making awesome stuff. Please go there, check it out if you are interested in doing your own podcast or just recording yourself at home for any particular reason.
Hey, that sounds like a podcast that we're going to do.
Yeah, it might be. Oh, hey, look at that. Except we're not going to cover this part.
Oh.
Yeah, but that's okay. Anyways, go check them out, Rode Mics. And now, let's talk about what we did for our music world this week, guys. Okay. Well, how about Tony? Where then we'll hop over to Eric.
Okay. Well, since you put it that way. So this week, I have been working with my good friend, Jared Brandon.
That's me.
Brandon Wound Pickups on his hum canceling P90. This is for our screen top pickups project. And a while back, he had put together a one for me to try out. And I popped it in one of my guitars in the neck position, and it sounded great. So he put in a full set together and one of his guitars that's a dual P90. Popped those in. Neck sounded great. Bridge, not
really
so good.
thin. It's just the volume was too low.
Yeah, it just didn't quite cut it.
No.
So we went back and forth a couple of times.
So it really was noiseless.
It was just not a pleasant noise.
It just wasn't enough.
So I think what was it, the third try, Jared? I think we got it pretty well into the ballpark.
So Tony actually had a Lindy Fralin noiseless P90, and I analyzed that, and I did not copy exactly what he did, but I did kind of my own spin, but with around the same parameters. So it sounds good, because Lindy Fralin is probably, in my opinion, the best P90 guru pickup guy out there that exists. So I thought that was smart to kind of see what he did, and then I found out a way to do it my way, but yet have it right at the same time, and that's what I finally achieved. It's been a while since I kind of got to say, "Oh, I did it," but
I think he did a great job. It sounds the way that I wanted it to. We've got 3 sets going to a customer in Australia. We got another set going to a buddy of mine. So I'm satisfied and proud to send these out. So thank you, Jared. Good job.
Right
and thanks, Lindy, for the inspiration.
That's right.
Yeah. Also, real quick, I want to say I got to test your Jared's noiseless Jazzmaster pickups.
Yes.
And those sound incredible. Like, I also had one of your traditional Jazzmaster pickups, which is, I think I just don't really like the traditional Jazzmaster sound because it's super spiky.
Yes.
But even with your noiseless pickups, you get all of that like nicer upper like high end, but you get no noise, of course.
Right.
So if your P90 is anything like that, then
the beauty of the P9 or the hum canceling P90 is it still has, I won't say it sounds exactly like a P90, but it's still it keeps some of the bite and the grit and the overall tone, again, without the hum. And that's I think it's very similar. I have a set of Jared's Jazzmaster noiseless too, and I think those are really good pickups. So this is, I think, on par with that.
Awesome. Thanks, Tony. Eric, how about you?
So I've had, just like most of the past weeks, this week has been pretty busy. I'm doing a lot of demo videos. I just finished up one for the Junipero from Xander Circuitry. Alex was just on the show.
Mm-hmm.
That is a super in-depth pedal. I did the Frost Giant Mountain. Eric was also on the show.
Yeah.
I just had a podcast release with the Tone Jerks, who again were on the show. Tons of stuff. I just had a video on the Teletalks channel where I got to make a 4 pedal board. That was cool.
Cool.
Instagram, I'm posting on there constantly. Lefty Guitars Daily again. That is my new venture that's been growing pretty fast. And then probably the most exciting for me is that I got to take part in a collaboration project with like my favorite guitarist ever, whose name is Fred Mascherino. He used to play in Taking Back Sunday. He did like a quarantine collaboration where he recorded the skeleton of a song and said like, hey, if you want to contribute to all of his fans, go ahead. So I recorded some guitar and it made it into the final
That's
release.
Cool.
Yeah. And that was just released on Monday. So tons of stuff. I'm wearing a lot of hats.
Yeah. No, it's that's a common thing amongst many of us. So yeah, that's very cool. Lots going on.
Yes.
Jared.
Oh yes. So it's been a very exciting, fun-filled week for me. Some ups and downs. I'll tell you a small downer. Yesterday I was working in my shop, minding my own darn business, and I get a PayPal notification that I just paid $992.63 for an in-store purchase at a FedEx on the West Coast.
Oh my.
So you're welcome, somebody in the West Coast that compromised my credit card number.
Wow.
So I knew I was going to get the money back, and it's just a hassle to have to, calibrate the number with the things that, monthly bills that come, use that number. And so I call the thing and I tell them like, and then I call them back. I'm like, can I help? And I said, can I help you catch the person I would almost just rather catch the person and see them get punished than get the money back. You know what? I'll let you keep the money if you just show me that he's going to jail or whoever it was. But a really cool thing, I'm lining up a trailer.
Well, hang on real quick. I know a lot of your business, anybody who's selling and buying stuff, which includes an awful lot of gear these days online, just do the two-way identification, the two-factor identification thing, where it's like, oh, you're about to make this purchase. Is this you? And it sends you a text. No. Yep. Click, bang, you're done. Just do that. Everybody, just make sure you do that.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimalize because it's linked to my PayPal. I'm thinking about just not using that and just using a credit card instead. Just getting a credit card with because it's the credit card company's money that gets stolen, not mine out of PayPal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it would be easier to deal with the credit card and the two-way thing that you're talking about too. I think I want to do it's just to alleviate the hassle and to discourage the thieves.
Yes, indeed. Cool thing about this week, I'm lining up a trailer to go to John Finnell's recording studio, pick up that 1-inch reel-to-reel, that Tascam, and we're taking it up there. I thought I'd mention that. I'm taking it up to my buddy. He's going to build a recording studio. But I thought I'd mention that because of tonight's topic. But finally, I'm going to get that thing out of the studio, and Todd's going to help me load it up. Yeah, well,
tomorrow morning.
See how that goes.
Saturday morning, yeah. Yep. Oh, I got a ramp. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
So it's all good.
Sure.
That's about it.
How about you, Todd?
Well, for me, we're getting back to we're actually getting into practices together again. So we're trying to do a safe distancing kind of practice thing. We have a big enough space where we can do that effectively. It's a lot of summer travels are over. So going through, I had a nice writing kind of like blitz where just a whole bunch of stuff ended up coming out and everybody responded really well to it. So they're very excited to start playing some of these songs that I put together and really looking forward to that. So just kind of sifting through that and saying, what is really worth tackling and spending time on. So that's been kind of fun, just going through clips. And sometimes, when you throw down your iPhone or whatever phone you have and you hit record and then you're like, that was cool. And then you come back to it 2 weeks later and you go, either that was really cool or it's like, goodness sakes, what was I doing? So I didn't have any of those, cause there's always a couple stinkers. But the funny thing is the way that I name my riffs in batches. So if I have a particular run, I'll name them all kinds of candy. Like this one's Snicker Bar, or this one is Chico Stick, or this one's Jolly Ranchers. And then sometimes it's like meat dishes because those are fun to say, and then I'll have like really old timey desserts, like grandma desserts and stuff, like baked Alaska. So it's true. So when we go to the whiteboard, it's like baked Alaska, Snicker Bar, roast duck, and so it looks like a menu, but it makes sense. That's how it works in my head for some reason.
Wow, that's fascinating.
I think you should make one that the name is Grandma Desserts.
Grandma Desserts, yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's better than 1 and 2, and you're like, well, which one was one? Are we on 2 or 3? Which one's, it's like a mess that way. So, and it's more fun. They get a kick out of it. So one of my favorite ones right now is called Banana Popsicle because I love banana popsicles.
I think you should change it over to a binary system.
Yeah. I'll get right on
Solid.
that. This is typically where we would drop the 4 on the floor, which we're not doing. We're bypassing that tonight because we have a lot to talk about. This 101's really exciting and it's very timely because we are all kind of stuck at home and hopefully a lot of us are hitting creative patches because there's not a whole lot else to do or or you're just finding more time to spend with your instruments and just your musicality and stuff. So it also is in that same instance, we're not playing, most of us aren't playing crazy loud stuff in giant rehearsal rooms or on stage, anything. So that forces a different dynamic on how we're actually playing in our house. And so we're taking some of those dynamics and we're going to approach how one might record, depending on what your setup is. So, and things that you might need to make it even better that aren't going to break the bank. I'm happy to say when Eric and I were kind of going over this agenda, we realized except for one thing, there's nothing that we're talking about over $500.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool to basically be able to just, you could record an entire album off of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and it's all great quality stuff too.
Yes. This is not the cheapo bin of stuff. Because that's just going to come out in the wash if you're recording. So it's good stuff. It's going to make sure that you sound as good as you possibly can. And I'm not saying that this is for someone who's going to record an album necessarily, but it's just a great way to capture your creativity or do something else with it, even demoing and stuff. So, all right, Eric, we're going to go get something to eat. You just take it from here, and I'll just edit it later.
Nice. I've got the outline, so
perfect.
Here we go.
Okay, let's just create a scenario.
Let's do it.
You're in a room. Okay, let's just say that. You're in a room, and you've got your guitars, and you have a computer. Okay? So at bare minimum, you got a guitar cord, and a computer. Now, you want to just talk about what you might have on the computer really quick?
For a lot of people, if you have a Mac, you already have GarageBand, and that's one place that I tend to suggest people start is what you already have on your computer. Now, on PCs, it's a little bit different. I know that there are free versions of other softwares like Pro Tools, I believe, has a free version. So we'll want a DAW of some sort, a digital audio workstation.
Yeah, so a digital audio workstation, in case you don't, even if that's not registering, it's basically just an app on your computer.
Yeah, and it lets you record the audio signal that you're sending into the computer.
Right. Okay, so in GarageBand, for those of you who are not familiar, maybe you don't even know you have it on a computer. You have plenty of cool pedal options and cabs and amps and all that stuff is already on there if you're going down the Mac path. And if you're going down something like Ableton or something like that, all of these things accommodate to a certain degree. There are limitations as with anything else, but that is a great ground place to start. If you're a little bit more advanced, you might have Logic Pro on the Mac. And that will also take care of a lot of that. It's a little less on the play part. I think GarageBand is a little bit more of maybe a playful area, you might say. It's primarily for fun creativity.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes trying out all these different amps, like you said, and pedals very, very easy.
Yeah. And it's honestly, that's a really great way to kind of get a good understanding of what those different type things do, because they're all modeled off of very well-known things. So it's a nice exploration. So in order to get your guitar sound into that, you need an interface.
Yes. Yeah, and an interface takes your analog signal, it converts it to digital, and then sends it into the computer, usually via USB. On older computers, it'll be the normal USB. On newer computers, it would be like a USB-C.
Yeah. Now, the interface is basically, it's just a little box that'll sit on top of your desk. There's two primary ones that are kind of out there, Eric.
Yeah, I think the one that I see most commonly is the Focusrite. I believe, Jared, you said you were using a Focusrite.
The Scarlett.
Yeah, the Scarlet series.
Yeah, it's got 2 inputs and
Yeah.
it's got some bells and whistles in it. When I use this interface for GarageBand, there's a button on here that says 48 volt. That button is off, but when I use it to podcast, like right now, I turn that 48 volt on, and then it works. So,
and that is phantom power, if anyone doesn't know. So in some microphones, generally condensers, they need more electricity, more signal to flow through them. Sometimes microphones get around that by putting a battery in the actual microphone.
Yeah.
But generally you have an option to turn on 48 volt phantom power.
Right.
There's also an instrument button and an air button, and I have it on the air button.
Interesting. Yeah.
So I don't know what that means.
Did you read the manual?
I know. No,
Of course not.
I just like pushing the buttons and just making it work, just figuring it out, man. That's my whole life.
That's
just
fair.
Push buttons and see what they do.
So what's interesting about the input? So Jared just mentioned 2 inputs. Now so there's the Focusrite Scarlet. It's a red anodized box. It's very recognizable. I think it's around like $249, something like that.
So that sounds about right.
Yeah. And then there's a PreSonus, PRESONUS, and SONOUS, something like that. PreSonus. You'll figure it out.
Yeah, it's blue.
Yeah, and it's blue. And so basically, what is cool about these little units is that while it only has 2 inputs, those inputs are dual purpose. So you can plug a guitar cable into the center, or an XLR.
You are correct.
I didn't know if you wanted to add anything there.
Yeah, and that lets you have a even more flexibility, because you can then, if you have a microphone, which we'll talk about later, or a guitar cord, you can mic up your amp, or sing into it, record vocals just like you guys are for this podcast, or you can plug your guitar into it.
Yeah, that's true. In fact, I remember at one point in time, I had a guitar in one and I had a bass in the other, so that I was like using both of them to record 2 parts of a song. And instead of like stopping and undoing everything, I was just like, there you go.
Wait, so were you recording guitar and bass at the same time?
I'm pretty good. I don't know if you understand that. No, I had the bass off to the side, but it was still it had the cable and it was plugged in. I had the guitar and I was playing, and I'm cool. That was really neat. I'm going to do the bass line. I just pick it up and then switch the input track, and boom, off you go.
Nice. Yeah. So I think that's a great point to get us onto the simplest way and sort of like the least amount of equipment that you need. Because just like you said, you were plugging your guitar and bass straight into each channel, of the interface. And then inside your DAW, you can then record a dry signal if you want, or you can apply amp simulation, speaker simulation, or put pedals on it,
Right.
And then that way you can get a whole bunch of different tones without any extra equipment.
Yeah. Well, and like we said, this is under, it's about 250 and under to do that. And you can get them even cheaper than that. Now, granted, there are certain features on there that are helpful, like levels and meters that will make sure that you're not clipping and stuff. But those two, the ones that we just talked about, are kind of like the market leaders in that area, and they're very reliable. They've been around a long time. They're very well established. You can get them anywhere. Sweetwater, I'll send it to you in an hour. Well, no, not really, but brew it really quick, and you'll get the hard candy.
Yeah.
That is a nice touch, by the way.
It is a nice
Sweetwater.
touch. Yeah. So is the no tax in a lot of places, I think, if they're still doing that. But anyways, that's a Sweetwater show. Never mind. The other thing to take note of, we're talking about recording, but honestly, that is if you're in an apartment, you can rock your heart out and no one will ever hear you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't have to be recording for some purpose. You can just play.
Yeah, you can just use it to monitor. And like we talked about before, I think it's a great way. Like, let's say you're thinking about buying a pedal or thinking about buying something. you can sort of emulate different things. So like if you were thinking like, oh, I wonder what an octave fuzz would sound like, you can recreate that with an octave fuzz pedal in your software.
Yeah.
Or you can put an octave on and then a fuzz pedal.
Yeah.
And just hear what you like.
Yep. And then we're actually going to get into some, granted, there are limits to some of the just inherent easy entry stuff. But, when you were talking about, do I want to play a fuzz pedal? Okay, cool. I can choose the fuzz pedal or one of 2 or 3. But some of the other things we're going to talk about, it's like you have a whole store at your fingertips. You have like almost the entire Sweetwater with some of these things that we're going to talk about. All right. So at bare minimum, you've got a computer, you've got a guitar and a cable. All you need is an interface. So that's how you can get rocking to your heart's content without a whole lot of hurt on the old wallet.
And that's going to carry over for a lot of these different situations that we're talking about.
Yes.
Which is why we wanted to address it first, because that is a super integral part of recording.
Yes. Almost everything actually that we're going to talk about, except for 2 things. So, all right. So great. Now you're like, hey guys, I already have an interface and I actually have other stuff too. Or actually, why don't we just talk about, maybe you don't even need the interface because you have one of these 2 amps.
That would be like a practice amp. So if you have a Fender Mustang or a Boss Katana or some other variety of different practice amp or digital amp.
Digital amp, yeah.
Yeah, digital amps. A lot of times those amps have USB ports on the back, so you can just run them directly into your computer.
Correct. And you don't even, just through USB.
Yeah, through USB, and you can bypass the interface. I do have a Katana, and I actually prefer using the record out because it has a dedicated speaker simulated line out of it that I can then run into my interface. And I've just found that it gives me a stronger signal that I like better than running it directly in USB.
That's fair. That's fair.
Has anybody tried to play this, or anybody checked out the Spark? That ad is on Facebook every 5 seconds.
That's the Positive Grid one, right?
I don't know. It's just a Spark and somebody's rocking out on it.
Okay.
I see it every 5 minutes. It's crazy.
I haven't tried that, but my fiance's cousin just got it and he texted me. He was like, dude, it's awesome. I love it.
So no, you bring up a good point. Let's just set something straight here, everybody. We are not saying that the things that we are mentioning are the only things out there. We're just referencing some of the more familiar, more tried and true, more top of mind type things. But there are, for every one thing, there's like 5 others that we're probably not going to mention. But the point is, as long as you're considering something within that set, it'll work for you, and it'll do the job. Speaking of those 2 amps and any other thing that might be along those lines,
yes,
you have.
I want to say,
did you like that?
No, I have a processor that's 10 years old, 15 years. Well, it's about 10 years old, and I plugged that into my computer, and that pretty much worked as an interface. So if you have an old processor laying around and you don't have any money, and that's in some people's cases, you don't have any money, that'll work too. At least for ideas if you can't get a good tone out of it. But I've done that before. In fact, I did it about 3 months ago.
What do you mean processor?
An effects processor, an effects board.
Oh, okay.
Like a Digitech RP500. That's what I have. And that worked for me.
Interesting.
Amazingly.
Yeah. Well, so there's a little tip from Jared. So like if you happen to have one of those multi-effects pedals laying around, maybe that'll, I'm not sure how that works, but I know how they work, but I don't know how that works in this scenario. But if he did it, I trust that there's a way.
Yep.
Now what's interesting just really quickly about those digital amps, Eric, what can you get a Katana for?
I think when I got the Katana, it might have been $200. But since I bought it a couple of years ago, they've released a version 2, which means there are a whole bunch of version 1s on sale used. So I honestly don't know, but you can get it well within like $100 to $200, I bet.
Yeah, and then if you want like you can get an MK2, which is the new one he's talking about. The 1x12 is about $350, and a 212 is about $469, and you can actually go gig with that too. So knock yourselves out.
And that's another thing that like we'll sort of get onto like dual purpose things in a little bit, but that's one piece of equipment that can serve both purposes. Like when we can play shows again, you can totally gig with I think even the 50 watt would probably be loud enough to gig with. Yeah,
that's fair for sure.
But you can also then go direct into board too. If if it wasn't, supposedly precisely loud enough, so you can, if you have a good monitor system, that would take care of that.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Tony, speaking of that, all of these amps that we're talking about right now, whether it's the Katana or the Mustang or some other one, they also have different amps that you can choose within there and effects. Mm-hmm. So it's a modeling amp. So if you say, hey, I want to on this song, I want to play a Marshall, boom. They got foot switches. They got all the different ways to get those things. I want to play a Fender Twin. Bang! You just hit a button. You got it. So
okay, well, they're approximations.
Yes, well, clearly, yes, they are approximations. Granted, but we're saying if that's what you have. That's a bonus. So going directly into the board, you have a lot of options. You're not just playing through a dry amp. You don't have to do that.
Right.
Yeah. And the Katana's, just to go into it a little bit, the Katana's a little bit different. It's not modeling any other amps, but it does have different effects. So like you can send effects to the front of house too, without even needing like any pedals in front of it. Now, I believe the Mustang from Fender does do the modeling of different types of amps.
Yeah, all the major amps. I have the second round of Fender Mustangs before the last one, which I think a lot of people consider a bit of a stinker, but the previous ones have Voxes and Marshalls and every Fender amp now. And yeah, it's not like if you hit the Silverface, pick your Silverface, it's going to sound exactly like this, a real one sitting next to it, because there's more to it than just the amp part. You got the speaker, you got the tubes, there's all kinds of stuff going on in there. But it is to get you to a place where it pretty much will get you there if that's what you have. So, and we're still under $400. We're still under $500. Now, we didn't set this up as like, hey, we have to keep everything under $500. It's just something that we noticed. We're like, yeah, this is kind of cool. You can have a fantastic guitar life this way for under $500, almost totally across the board.
I'm going to make a shirt that just says, have a fantastic guitar life.
Please do.
for under $500.
Yeah.
That's going to be on the back.
Yeah. So anyways, that is just your guitar, a digital amp, a digital combo amp, and your computer. That's it. So that's kind of sweet. Now,
super sweet.
What would be the next scenario?
So a lot of us, like we were talking about, we're in a room, generally a small room like I am right now. And generally like with people on the other side of the wall, neighbors, essentially, upstairs and downstairs. So I live in an apartment. I do have a Katana, but I also have other combo amps that are tube amps, so we can move sort of into, what if we have a tube amp already that we don't really want to get another amp because we already have an amp. How can we then use our tube amp to get our signal into the computer? Right.
Now, one of the big reasons that I started talking to Eric about this was that I know he did that, your episode on YouTube. And one thing that I did like about that and we've talked about this many times on the shows, like there is a huge range of people that play guitar and that listen to this show. There are people who have been playing all their lives and they have, the world's greatest gear that they've accumulated all their life, all the way down to someone who's just got a guitar and maybe doesn't even have an amp yet. So, or maybe they don't even have a guitar yet. I mean, maybe there's people who listen to the show that are in that boat. If so, I would love to hear from you. And the cool thing is that about the guitar world and the guitar community is that, hey, if you're interested, that's good enough. We can talk. We can be friends. Let's have a good time. So when I typically see stuff about like, hey, here's how to record your tube amp, it's like, first you're going to need a $500 ribbon mic and you're going to drape it down the front. And it's like, well, okay, I don't have that. So now what? And Eric's initial show did that. So I was like, hey, cool. Yeah, let's take this a little further here.
Yeah, it just like you were saying, there's so many different ways to get great sounds, especially these days with all the technology we have. It's awesome to talk about and explore all these different ways.
I mean, I have that universal audio aux. I've got two of them, but
we're going to get there, big boy. Slow your roll. All right, Eric, what is the next scenario?
So I think the next scenario would probably be you have a tube amp that you like, but you can't really turn it up because, again, you're in an apartment. You're in a basement where you can't wake the rest of your family. You can't annoy them. But the sound that you want from that tube amp is it cranked all the way up, So, like, how can we get the sound of that amp into our computer and sound good?
So, well, the first thing you need before you even turn it up is you don't have to have a $500 ribbon mic. I mean, sure, it was going to sound nice, but what can you use to just capture the sound in a way that is going to work for us? So
the most like ubiquitous mic is probably the SM57 from Shure. Mm-hmm. That one, like if I mic up a cabinet, it's with a 57. Honestly, I haven't tried anything else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can find those all day on like Reverb or even new from Sweetwater, wherever you want to buy gear from for like $100.
Yeah.
And that's what they use live as well, don't they?
Most venues, that's what you're going to get in front of your speaker. One note about that, though, I think I just wanted to touch on this because it does come into play. Mic placement. All right.
Yes, mic placement is very, very important.
It is. And it is also worth playing around because important doesn't mean there's only one way to do it. So you take the time and try, put it right in front of the cone, put it 45-degree angle so it's paralleling with the side of your cone, put it towards the edge, push it, put it right up against the grill, pull it back a foot. Figure out what sound you like. You're the master of your own guitar universe. Just take the time to do it. There's not a right or wrong way. There are better ways that might be able to get you to certain sounds you want, but that's what you have to figure out. And what's interesting is in virtually every scenario we're talking about, whether it's the computer DAW or digital audio workstation or app, we'll just say app. Oh, the digital audio, it's your app, whatever app you're using, whatever. You have the ability in many of these cases to play with not only different kinds of mics, but distance and positioning. It's really quite cool to play around with that because it is shocking how different your sound will be as you're doing it. And a perfect example of that, even without a mic, is like sit in a chair in front of your amp, okay, wherever you are, or stand or whatever, but just make sure you're getting as much so it's not, hitting your knees and your ankles, right? To get a really good understanding of the sound. Maybe you just sit cross-legged and play, whatever. Sit directly in front of it. Sit just so you're a few feet to the side of it. You're going to hear a completely different sound, even though you're the same distance from it. And
Yeah.
that transfers into a mic, which transfers into what people are hearing.
Absolutely. And sorry. One thing that I like to, I guess a starting point or a general like way to describe mic placement is a lot of times if you place a mic directly on your grill cloth, pointed at the speaker, in the very center of the speaker is going to be the brightest sound. And then as you move out towards the edge of the speaker, it's sort of like rolling off a tone knob. You know, you're cutting high frequencies, you're emphasizing low frequencies. So the sound changes drastically, even within moving the mic an inch.
Yeah. So, and side note, once you do find that place that you really like, that's where you might want to mark it on your grill cloth, or at least know where that is. So when Mr. Man comes up and mics your amp, you say, no. I got to angle it, in towards the cone, or I got to move it out, or, you do that. You get to do that. That's what you get to do. But know where that place is. So you don't, it's stupid if you show up to a gig and you're like, well, I guess it's all good. And everybody is standing in front of the amp going, oh my gosh, this sounds terrible. Fix it. You can do it.
Have you had that problem, Todd?
When I was listening to you play, it was really, I wish I couldn't find the sound guy, but I wish I could have. Anyways, no, I have had that, honestly. Anyhow, there's that.
Don't put your mic on the amp head if that has a baffle. So
yeah.
There's no speaker there.
Yeah, the picture of the sound tech like miking the JCM 800 head.
Oh yeah, so funny. So, anyways, that's just a basic into setting up a mic. You don't have to be, if you haven't done it before, it's not super difficult, and play around again. Just figure out what that is for you.
Yeah, and that's the most basic way to get a tube amp sound into your computer is to mic it. But like we were talking about before, especially from my stance, I'm in an apartment, so I can't turn up. I essentially can't make any sound for fear of my neighbors saying, hey, you're not allowed to make that. I'm calling the cops or the apartment or whatever.
Well, so not even for, so volume is one thing, right? Mm-hmm. But why might you want to get that volume if you've got like a really nice amp that just has that sweet sound once you hit like 4 on the volume or whatever? Yeah. You're not going to get that if you're stuck at 1. It's just not going to make the sound that those driven tubes make, no matter what. You have to get it up to that volume to actually get some of that pure drive. Tony, anything to add there? You're kind of you know this stuff pretty well.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's certainly ways around that, whether it's an attenuator or something like Jared's aux, or there's even been other things that pull the voltage off, and allow you to basically attach a mic cable to it, almost like a DI coming off of that. So, yeah, I mean there are sweet spots for amplifiers, and if you're in a situation where you can't turn it up, then I think your only alternative is to find whether it's an attenuator or something like that to keep the volume down, or be able to use it with headphones.
Right. So you just mentioned Jared's aux. Jared, I know you're dying to talk about your auxes. Would you like to talk about those real quick?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So
let's just skip over that. It's not interesting.
Whatever.
It is oxen when it's multiple.
Yes.
I have 2. So I have oxen.
I have oxen. I love it.
I do. I have oxen.
I have a dog.
2 of them. So yeah. When you're practicing and you want to use your JCM 800 with your 4 12-inch, your cab or your full stack, use the aux. You can turn the volume down, and it's not a dial. It's not a fine-tuned dial, but I think there's 4 or 5 different volumes you can turn it down to, and then just adjust the volume on your amp, unless it's dimed, But another thing that I used it for, which was mostly for home recording, because my wife's usually at work. I crank the thing up and make myself go deaf. But for recording, I did use it. I have a 1973 Mark II 100-watt JMP.
Marshall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just for those who don't know, like the alphabet soup you just spilled out.
Right. So it's an old Marshall, and it's been modded. So it has a gain stage inside. And I haven't gone inside to look. I wouldn't know what the heck he did anyway. But so I used the aux with that into my Focusrite into GarageBand. And I think I could have skipped the Focusrite. I don't remember. But I remember that I got a sound out of it that was so clean and it sounded really good. And I went to get that same sound to attenuate through the speakers later on, and I couldn't get that exact same sound because the aux has the mode where you're not even using the speakers, and you can choose what it sounds like from there. So you have all these different modes. So you have a big advantage with the audio, solutions or whatever. I forget what it's called, the aux.
Yeah.
And it's really, really super handy. But yeah, I couldn't get that exact same sound, but it still sounded really great. I mean, it still does the job, but maybe I should just get different speakers or try it through a different cab. But no, with the recording, it was just a phenomenal tool.
Yeah.
It's the best sound I've ever gotten thus far on my own.
Awesome.
So I do recommend those if you can find them used, or I mean they are super durable. I was in a hurry 2 weeks ago and I hooked it up wrong, and there was smoke coming out of the top of it.
Oh,
Never good.
And I was like, and I smelled that weird electronic burn smell, and I'm like, no, what am I doing? It's my $1,300 thing, and I corrected the way I plugged it in, and I turned it back on, and it's as if it never happened. I mean, it's an amazing durable machine.
Yeah, and so just to summarize what we've been talking about. This type of setup is taking the speaker output from your amp and running it into something that's called a reactive load. So essentially it tells your amp like, okay, hey, you're plugged into a speaker, you can make all the sound you want and you don't have to blow up. And then from there, you can either choose to run it to a speaker cabinet for attenuation like the aux does, or you can simulate different speakers and different microphones and then send a line out from the reactive load that has been simulating the speaker into your interface, which you can then record high quality audio with. And like Todd said before, we are only going to cover a couple different pieces of equipment that are expensive, and the aux is definitely one of them.
Right.
But there are also plenty of other options too. I mean, the aux is the Cadillac. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
You can find others that are, a lot more affordable and don't have as many features and don't recover from plugging them in wrong like Jared's.
Right.
But there's plenty of other options too.
Yeah, and one of the best like affordable options is from Tune Notes. Now they have a couple different ones. They have the Captor, which is a more affordable version where you can attenuate, and it's a reactive load, and you can also attenuate if you want to, but you can get a line level signal out of, I think it's rated up to like 120 watts. And then they have a new one where it's the Captor X, and you can do all the things in the Captor. So you can plug your tube amp into it, and then you can load in IRs, which are impulse responses, which are essentially, without trying to go too much into detail, it's a picture of an amplifier miking a specific speaker with a specific cab, so you can run your signal through that IR into your computer and get all that, high quality audio into your computer without breaking the bank. I think that one is maybe $600, the Captor X.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's loads of the speaker simulators out there.
Yes.
We're gonna touch on we're going to get on the fringe of that here in just a couple of minutes here. But
Definitely.
The nice thing about that is that, again, whether you have, a 70s Marshall stack or you have a Fender Princeton that you want to goose, neither one of those is really going to work very well in an apartment or even just for your own ears in a room. It's just not good for your ears, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you can still capture your actual tone without having to feel like you might be sacrificing by choosing an amp or a cab sim to do that. So there are ways to actually do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, and that was the only time we're really breaching that 500 mark significantly, I might add. But hey, if you've got a $2,000 plus amp and it's just sitting there collecting dust, might be worth it,
Yeah, for sure. And like Tony said, there are affordable options, but also I wanted to say, Jared, you will appreciate this. I have the aux as well, and I run it with my Rocket Retro RR100, which is a 1959 replica super lead.
Oh yeah,
in my apartment, and I can do that silently.
Nice,
amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, final scenario that we cooked up here, and again, people, there are innumerable scenarios, but generally speaking,
that word.
Innumerable.
That's right.
Scenarios.
Say it one more time.
Innumerable. Scenario. I don't know. That's yeah. Now I'm all thrown off.
I'm sorry.
It's my fault.
Unbelievable. All right. Anyways, we are just selecting very probable scenarios for most anybody that might be listening. We each fall into one or more of these scenarios. So, the next one being, I like my amp. It's great for gigging, or I'm kind of over an amp. I want to explore. Either way, I need to get that signal from my guitar to my computer, and I'm feeling a little adventurous. What are my options? Eric Merrow.
Okay, you've got a few options. I'm going to run through them real quick right now. So like if you have a pedal board, I think this is what we sort of all fall, well, maybe not all of us. A lot of us fall into the fact that we have pedals that we like to use in front of an amp. We have different drive pedals, modulation. One thing we can do is we can use our pedal board. So maybe you're in the situation where you get all of your sounds from a pedal board that's running into a super clean amp. So really the amp doesn't matter essentially because it's just clean. You can run your pedal board into either a speaker simulator pedal or even an all-in-one sort of like amp, cabinet, and room pedal, and then out to your interface.
Right. So we're going to cover on a couple of those, and these are not, these aren't one-to-one comparisons. Just so you know. So we picked a couple that kind of cover a few different options for you. So let's run through those. Oh, and the upside of this scenario is that if you take it to a gig, you can sound fantastic as well.
For sure. Yeah. And so I think it would be best if we start at sort of like the most what you see is what you get pedal. And that in this instance, we're going to talk about the Strymon Iridium, which is 3 different amps. I believe it's a Marshall, Fender, and Vox into 3 different cabs that you have the choice between all these things. And then you have a room dial, so you can dial in more room sound or less room sound. So your whole signal, your pedal board, if you put this at the end, you're running your whole pedal board into this amp, and then you can choose to run that to front of house, like if you're at a gig, or you can run it directly into your interface and record yourself playing.
That's pretty sweet, and it's That's about $400 for that thing. And it's from Strymon. So it's like, even when you sell it in, 5 years, if you want to, you're still going to probably get about that price. I mean, they hold their own really, really well. And what is interesting about the Iridium, while you're not going to get your full pedal board, it does have drive on it, which is kind of nice. But for all intent and purpose, you want to have your sound, which is, your reverbs and your delays and your overdrives, et cetera. But this essentially covers your amp and your cab in one box. The only thing that it doesn't have is an XLR out.
Yeah. So the Strymon, I'm not sure if it's stereo or mono, but it has 2 1/4-inch outs, or it has 1 or 2 1/4-inch outs.
Yeah. But super simple to use. I mean, crazy simple, and it sounds excellent. I mean, they don't put out not excellent sounding stuff. That's there also on their website, I believe.
Yeah, did they quote you on that one?
Yeah, everybody does. Duh.
It's on their new T-shirt.
You're stealing my idea.
Yeah, it's dropping like gold out of my pocket. But what is interesting is they do have a knob on that called Room, which is really neat because that gives you that great, almost like sometimes if you're playing with a reverb, you can kind of get like a sense of a room, and this gives you a sense of a room as far as where the mic is at, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and I think they made that specifically for a room sound. Like there are different types of reverbs, of course. If you have a reverb pedal, you probably know that. But like when you're recording, when you're miking something, as you start to pull the mic back from the speaker, you introduce more of the room that the speaker cabinet is in. So you hear the reflections off the walls and everything. And that room knob is sort of, essentially moving your microphone, your digital microphone out of the pedal, back in space. So you hear more of that room reflection and reverb.
Right. Now, also, hey, let's say you don't have a pedal board. You're just getting into things. You got a guitar, you got a computer, and you have an interface. This thing will get you to it as well because you got your amp, you can have these tones in a single box, and then you can put all your effects in once you're in the computer if that's that's an option too. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's like you said, Strymon makes great stuff, and it sounds awesome. I've listened to a whole bunch of demos. It sounds great.
Yeah.
So one thing that we mentioned that the Strymon doesn't have that might limit some people is an XLR out. Now that means that you'd have to take a 1/4-inch out. It's not really that much of a limitation, but sometimes it's nice to just run an XLR from a pedal into your interface.
And just to be clear, if you've gotten all this way and you don't know what an XLR is, it's okay. Because we have not really explained that, and that's we apologize.
Yeah.
So an XLR,
it's a microphone cable. So it has the ends are not the small like guitar jacks; they are bigger, and inside you can see 3 different prongs, whether it be the actual 3 prongs or the holes that they go in, and it carries I believe it's a shielded signal.
Boom, Tony.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
You may continue.
Thank you.
So, and aside from that, XLR cables are what's most commonly used in recording. And that's why all the interfaces that you see, or, the majority of them have XLR inputs on the front and back, because
yeah. And the main difference is that, an XLR cable is meant for a low impedance circuit versus a 1/4-inch, which is typically high impedance. So, it's always at least in the recording world, low impedance is always better.
Yes. And that sort of lets it be like run into amplifiers, right? A little bit more or a little bit easier.
Well, I think that, if you looked at some of the, even some of the Gibson guitar models that had low impedance pickups, they were meant to really be plugged in directly into a mixing console.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of models that have both low and high impedance, and high generally goes into an amplifier. So it's balanced versus unbalanced, high impedance, low impedance. But generally speaking, from a recording side, low impedance is probably the better way to go.
Right. And we're not going to go deep into impedance because that's a 15-minute conversation, even though it should only be about 5, but we've done that before. So if you don't know what that is, you can definitely find out really quickly on the internet.
Google.
Yes. So anyways, what is our next selection there, Eric?
Yes. Elaborating on the want for XLR, we can plug let's say we have a pedal board. We can, instead of plugging into something like the Strymon Iridium, which is an amp in a box or an amp in a pedal, we can then instead plug our entire pedal board into a speaker simulator, essentially. And then that will give us an XLR out to then take into our interface.
Such as?
There are a ton of them. The most common ones that I know of are the 2 Notes Cab M. That's a new one. The GFI systems have a model called the Cab Zeus. They have a stereo and a mono version. And then I believe New Neighbor has the Iconoclast.
Yes.
I think that is their speaker simulator.
Correctamundo. And I believe the 2 Notes actually has amp modeling in it as well to a degree.
Yeah, exactly. And that they just released a firmware update where if you plug it into your computer, you can then manipulate a bunch of things, including, like we were talking about earlier, maybe you don't understand what the mic placement translates into, difference in sound.
You can see it.
Yeah, exactly. They have a visual interface that lets you just drag the mic across the speaker, and then you can translate that into what you hear and then determine what you like.
That's also in GarageBand too. You can see that as well.
Yes. And just like GarageBand, in the 2 Notes software, you can change different types of cabinets and different types of mics and rooms even. You can dampen rooms by putting rugs down. Mm-hmm. It's really, really cool.
Now that 2 Notes thing is kind of interesting because I think specifically there's a lot of hype around this, a lot of pros and people who are interacting with a lot of gear. A lot of demo people are like, this is really something pretty awesome. And the cool thing is, it's like $320.
Yes. Yeah, they're another company. They make great stuff at an affordable price, and it gives you so much versatility to just try new things. And even if you know what you want, you get great sounds out of it.
Right. I was watching Jay Leonard J, who I actually find very entertaining and very informative. He's on YouTube, and the guy's a fantastic guitar player.
He has
loads
amazing.
Of experience, and his stuff is always super informative. I never feel like he's talking over my head or talking under me either. So yeah, he's got a great review on this. If you go check that out. And what was interesting is, I've talked about this on the show before, where I'm essentially saying, gosh, I wish I could have this amp sound and this other amp sound, but bringing 2 amps to my show is that's kind of a bit much. And it's a little hard to manage those 2 sounds if I'm being mics and stuff. So one thing that he said that he did was he'll have his cab mic'd, and he can also send a direct out from this 2 Notes thing. So he's basically running 2 different amps. I was like, oh, that's cool. I like that idea a lot.
Yeah, and that sort of harkens back to what we were talking about before. It's it's awesome to have that gear that's dual purpose, where you can record with it, get great sounds, but you can also gig with it and get practical uses for it in a live situation.
Right. Okay, so that takes us to the next one, which this is the last one, everybody. And this has been brought up on our show a time or two. We've had a lot of requests to just have a show about this pedal. I'm not even kidding. We're not going to do an entire show on this pedal at this point. Maybe that comes someday. Who knows? Maybe we get somebody from this company to come on and talk about it. But what pedal is this?
It is the HX Stomp from line 6.
Right. And it's kind of almost calling it a pedal is, it's stretching it a little
canvas. It's a canvas to paint your guitar dreams.
bit. It is literally everything in a box, except a guitar. I mean, honestly, it's everything in a box. And guess what? It's under $500, people.
Ooh.
Yes. So let's talk about this really quick. Eric, first, before you do a deep dive into it, one of our closest, dearest friends, Drew Foppy, when he was on the last episode that he was here, he went into great detail about this pedal on his 4 on the Floor. It almost became the HX Stomp show, but he gave us a ton of great information. If you want to hear that episode, just go back to episode 169, and you can hear a lot more than we're going to talk about as far as all of the possibilities and effects and everything. And there's loads of fantastic reviews and demos online. We are just speaking not from a what can this thing do, but specifically what can this do for you to get your signal to digital and a few other little goodies. So take it away, Eric.
Yeah, so the line 6 Helix, it's in the Helix line. So there are multiple different versions of the Helix. We're talking about the HX Stomp, which is a pedalboard friendly unit. It has all of the effects of the Helix line and the amp simulation. So what you can do is you can use it with other pedals if you want, or you can just run your guitar into it. But then you can sort of sculpt your customized signal chain. So inside the pedal, you have, I think it's 6 different spaces to then add, a drive or a reverb or a delay. And then you can even add amp simulation and cabinet simulation. And then you can run that out of the pedal into your interface.
Aside from it just going like, hey, it's got an amp and you can plug it in. There are 300 plus onboard amp, cab, and stomp models,
which is crazy.
Yeah, and you can mix and match and customize with that all too. Those aren't standard. You can, it's sort of an infinite amount of things. And what we were talking about earlier when we said, hey, I want to try what a fuzz pedal sounds like. Maybe you're not as familiar with a fuzz. Maybe you've only got an overdrive. We were all there. So everybody who's going, no, you've been there. Okay. Everybody starts out, small or somewhere, or just haven't tried things. There's plenty of things I haven't tried. Now in this, we mentioned in GarageBand, it's like, you can try like maybe 2 or 3 different kinds of fuzz. Here, you can try an entire store's worth of fuzz pretty much, or delay or reverb or overdrive, whatever it is. And every amp that you can possibly think of is likely in here. So it's loaded to the nines.
Absolutely. And also I just want to say, like, you've had Drew on and Jeff Schroeder from the Smashing Pumpkins who both endorsed this.
Right.
So like that.
And Joey Callio.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. And so that should give people like the legitimacy of it sounds great. So like the sound quality isn't a determining factor here. It's the fact that it has so much that you can do. I know Jared would like this. You could do parallel signal chains, or you could split your signal into stereo, and then run into 2 completely different amps.
Heck yeah. Or the same amp, but actually in true stereo.
Right.
You could do that
amps.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the limitation that everybody is like the HX Stomp. Now, the only limitation is there are 6 what are called blocks. Okay. So that would be, 6 different options. It isn't that you can have any of those on board at your pedal clicking pleasure. You do have to set it up and say, these are the ones I'm going to use within these 6 possible situations.
Yeah. And that's sort of, I think that lends itself to working with your existing pedals, maybe. So like you can set up a different style of amp with a reverb, maybe, and you can still use your physical drive pedal on your board if you want to, because you like the way that sounds.
Right, exactly. And you can also just send it out dry if you want. That's fine too. Yeah. The big thing is it's got a bunch of different ways to get it to digital.
Absolutely. So it also has the HX Stomp also has stereo inputs. So if you did want to run a stereo signal through it, you can. It has stereo outputs. It also has, to alleviate the need for an interface, you can run your signal out USB, I believe, because it has a USB port on it. Mm-hmm. And then you can hook it up to your computer, and then you can further design your signal chain on a bigger screen with a more convenient interface.
Yeah. Yep. So direct from your pedal board to a computer. Pretty sweet. So, and again, it's under $500 and you have basically everything you want. And the weird thing is when you start looking at options, this says, it's got 126 presets. You're like, that sounds kind of low. I don't know. Maybe you're saying that. But the thing is, honestly, if you're gigging, you really only have one setup, right? You have your pedals and your amp. That's the setup that you're bringing. So just the fact of having more than that by one is better. So something to consider. Also, I've seriously considered getting one of these, because if your amp craps out for any reason, or there's some issue, on stage, the guy's, I don't have another mic, it's not working. That I've actually had that, so I've had to goose my amp.
Yeah.
This will allow you to bypass that. So it's kind of sweet.
Yeah, you can go straight into the front of house with this. Again, you can design your sound like in the comfort of your own home. You can record with it to make sure it fits into your own songs. And then you can translate that into the stage.
Yep. All right. Whoo, doggies, we've covered off on an awful lot of areas, and hopefully everybody finds this very helpful. It's made me reconsider a couple things, and actually maybe not, just consider also. How about that? Yeah. Anyways, we welcome your questions and comments on that, as well as Eric. If you want to direct those to Eric, you can absolutely do that too. So yeah. This has been really fun. I think it's this is an episode I would have liked to hear as an up and coming guitarist, or even somebody who's just kind of in the middle and trying to figure out how to handle things, especially in this time and place that we are in right now in our lives.
Do it, yeah.
So, Jared.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, after this nice, long, awesome 101 that I love, we're going to do my little segment called Would You Rather? I got to bring up the Would You Rather so I can read it. I'm going to love this Would You Rather, because it's about time machines.
You got to embellish a little bit.
Love time machine scenarios, because I wish there was one. I don't want to interrupt the space-time continuum.
I've got one down at the shop.
Well, I'll be there next week.
Okay, cool.
Actually, can I set this up and then you can take it, Jared?
You go right ahead.
All right. So you visit Tony's shop because you're getting a pick guard done, and you're in there and you're like, you kind of got to drop a deuce, Tony. Can you help me out when you're making your thing? And he says, Sure, go in the back, take a hard right at the thing that doesn't look like a bathroom, but it is a bathroom, and don't bother shutting the door because it doesn't work, and neither does the light. But just go ahead in there. And you're like, oh, thanks. That's going to help me out quite a bit because, this could be problematic if I don't take care of this. You continue on with your pickguard making, and I'm going to be in the back. So you go in there and you're like, oh, well, I guess I'll just go, and you flush, and all of a sudden, boom.
And you're in a time machine.
Exactly. Ooh.
So would you rather go to Fullerton and test out the first broadcaster with Leo Fender? And, the broadcaster eventually becomes a Telecaster, just, so everybody knows. Or would you rather go to Kalamazoo, Michigan, and be there when Les Paul and Gibson developed the first Les Paul, and you get to play that? Which would you rather do?
Very curious. Very curious. So this would be, I guess the broadcaster would be the
probably like 1948.
Yeah.
So the Snakehead.
Yeah.
As it was affectionately known.
Sure. Which then went into the Nocaster.
No, went into the broadcaster, and then Gretsch sued Fender.
Well, that's what I said. It is the broadcaster.
Right. But then they had to clip all the decals, and those became Nocasters.
That's what I was saying. Yeah. So
Just
the
like you
broadcaster
said.
became the Nocaster. So, how about that, Tony? What's up?
What else would you like to know, Todd?
That never happens. Okay.
Right.
So that is, there's not a ton of change from the Telecaster we still know and love today. I mean,
very little.
Yes. So you'd see the genesis of that happening, or as Jared mentioned. So which would have been that first one that so that we can put sort of an image to that.
I guess we could just say early 50s.
Yeah, would that be 52? I believe the first one came out with that ugly tailpiece.
Yeah, the wraparound goofy bridge. Yeah,
right. That's and that would be like a gold.
Yeah, I think it was all gold. It wasn't the whole thing gold.
It might have been. I can't remember.
Yeah, the neck and the back of the headstock.
And that's the cream P90s.
Yeah.
Of course.
Oof.
Yep. That's what they use.
That's a pretty guitar.
You've learned a lot. You've learned a lot over the years.
I have. I really have. Thanks to you, Tony. I say that.
Me.
I say, well, both of you guys. I say that genuinely. I truly mean it, and I tell everybody that will listen that I'm not even joking. So thank you, both of you. All right, let's figure out what we want to do because everybody's done listening to us blabber on at this point. So Tony, what are you doing?
Well, gosh, I mean. As much as I would like to have a chat with Leo in Fullerton, that particular model was extremely crude. I mean, it was meant to be a relatively inexpensive guitar, although it was expensive for those days. But it had the bolt-on neck, so it was a working man's guitar, working person's guitar, and I really think that I would have rather gone to Kalamazoo to hang out with Les and the Gibson gang up there because I mean the very fact I mean that model was a reaction to what Leo was doing in California because they wanted a solid body instrument, and I think they put a lot more time and effort into it, even just the finish work on it, making it, gold. That meant that was their new high standard versus, what the Snakehead / broadcaster / Telecaster was definitely a lot more crude at the time. So, I mean, I just think that hanging out with Les and the Gibson boys, I think that would be my choice. I think it'd just be a better experience. I think.
Okay. All right. Jared?
As much as I would love to go back to Kalamazoo,
He's just going to say the opposite of what I said.
Well, and here's why. Because if I go back in time to Kalamazoo, I'll go mess with all the winders and, mess with everything else, and I'll screw something up, and I'll change the course of history of Gibson, and I'm afraid it won't be as good if I. Well,
everybody was real small back then, so you'd probably like bump into something and mess it up.
Yes, in Jared's world, Epiphone would own Gibson,
yeah.
Right?
They'd all go running, and then you'd have the whole factory to yourself.
Right? Yeah, I would screw something up at Gibson, so I'd rather just go to Fender and screw something up that Leo did. And I would hide the styrofoam cup that he wrote his name on, so he would have to get a new cup. And waste it, because that's what he's known to. He saved everything, and he didn't waste anything. I mean, he wrote his name on the styrofoam coffee cup to reuse it the next day. Yeah, I pretty much I want to go to California.
Sounds good.
And hang out with Leo. He's not a guitar guy, but I would love to just hang out with him and kind of get a feel for how he was, right. As much as I'm just going to go with that, because to me, either choice would be amazing. Right. I don't think there's a better one.
You're not going to hurt anybody's feelings. They're both.
There's not a better choice in my opinion. So I'll go to where the weather's better. So.
Good point.
Eric, how about yourself?
I think I'm going to have to follow suit with Tony and go hang out with Les, because I've always been more of a Gibson fan than Fender. I do like Fenders, but also I just would have wanted to see Les play.
Oh, he was amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
And you could have encouraged him to make more left-handed models.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, yeah. For sure. I would have played it upside down and say, "Hey, Les, what's the deal? Give me lefties."
How about you, Todd?
Well, I'm going to disregard the hanging out part, and I'm going to go straight for the guitar. I think it would be kind of special to be there for like the incarnation of, I guess rock, and modern music, whatever you want to call it. That was the thing that started it all, which, it's the Model T of cars. So I'd go talk to Leo and just kind of hold the thing that ignited everything, really.
Well, see, I'm going to disagree with you, because there were plenty of rock and roll players at the time, i.e. Bill Haley and the Comets, who used Gibson instrumentation.
Sure, I know.
So you're saying that, Fender was responsible for rock and roll, but
I'm not saying Fender was responsible for rock and roll. I'm saying the Telecaster was responsible for like modern rock. Like that's the thing. It's the tiny little engine that it has hardly changed. That's what I'm saying.
I saw a lot of pictures of blues players playing those big old Gibsons.
Sure, that's not what I'm talking about.
I'm gonna go one step. I'm gonna go one step further in an argument and say that actually the precision bass was more important to the development of rock and roll than the Telecaster.
Yeah,
because in the old days,
controversial.
Yes.
All right.
How about
you can take that and shove it?
Yeah.
All right.
You're not allowed to use my time machine.
No, my point simply is just that, like, if you go down through like all the way back then and all the way back now, without not looking when Les Paul jumped in, with his model, this historically, you just go and bang, 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 bang. All these guys are playing like that one instrument, and again with almost no change. And I'm not saying that there's other guitars or that they were solely responsible for it, but to me, that's kind of like heart of the like the first real beat to me. That's what it means to me. This is my choice. So
Well, I thought what would be cool about yours would be to see California orange groves as they were back then compared to what it is now.
Yeah. Growing up there. Yes. Anyways, so that's what I think, because I think that it's attached to so many of my guitar heroes and sounds that have moved us. This one thing consistent all the way through. So
don't cry, Todd. I don't want to upset.
I'm going to talk about it no more. Anyways, that was a great one. Thank you, Jonathan Dudzik, Grand Poobah, for sending that in.
Oh, JJ sent that, huh?
That is correct. All right, we're going to get out of this thing that we're doing. This is an extra long one, everybody. We thank you for sticking around. We have to thank a few people.
You're right, Todd. There is a special group of people we have to thank, our executive producers. Now, some people might be wondering, what's an executive producer and how can I become one? Here's what I want you to do. You go over to patreon.com/The Guitar Knobs, and you'll find several levels in which you can participate and become a sponsor, a patron of this very podcast. Now, each level comes with some great thank you gifts, things like barefoot buttons and t-shirts and keychains and stickers and all sorts of fun things.
Giveaways.
Oh, I forgot about the giveaways. Yes. But executive producers get all that great stuff. And one more thing. And what is that, Jared?
You get to have your name read on the thing.
Your name read on the thing. So that's what I'm going to do. We'd like to thank our executive producers. People like Tom Barazin, Martin Cliff, John Daly, Chris Kearney, Darren Gregory, Doug Christ, Michael Van Zant, Ken Sayers, Brian Robison, Michael Senchuk, Stefan Lamb, Johnny Knowles, Anthony Lathrop, John Anglin, Tyler Bray, Brad Partridge, Chris Heidel, John Esterly, Tim Novak, Doug Gann, Justin Jones, Brett Alexander, James White, Matt Hart, Liam Martin, James Pennington, and Richard Kendall. Oh, yes, a new Mr. Levi Main. Welcome aboard.
Hey!
But wait, don't stop me yet, Todd. No,
I'm not gonna.
There's a special group of people, of our executive producers. We like to call them our Grand Poobahs, and these are the patrons a la creme.
They wear fezzes and stuff.
They do wear a fez, and I believe by law, while they listen to the podcast, they must wear their fez.
That's right.
So, special thanks to these Grand Poobahs. Jonathan Dudzik, who also gave us that lovely Would You Rather. Corey Nigro, David Kaminga, Cody Lane, Cody Foster, Sean S.
Yes.
Tommy Manasco, Mark Garton, Christopher Marshall, Adam Johnson, and Steve Keys.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much to all of those supporters. It means the world to us. It keeps these episodes and many more. All the muches and manys keep coming. And we greatly appreciate you. Thank you so much. Eric Merrow, thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you?
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. You can find me again on YouTube, youtube.com/Eric Merrow. You can find me on Instagram at Eric Merrow or on Instagram at Lefty Guitars Daily.
Awesome. Tony Baloney, where can people find you?
Just go over to pickguardian.com. That's the best place. You can see some of the stuff that I do. I have some stock items that I sell, but by and large, most of what I do is custom work. So just shoot me an email. There's a link on the website. Let me know what you need. We can go back and forth a few times, and I will get you the information and take personal good care of you.
Right. And make sure you go to a shop and go to the time machine.
Don't ask about the time machine.
You really don't want to go in there. Jared, how about you?
So, yes, I don't have a time machine in my shop. However, what I do have are new pickups that look old or just new pickups.
That look new.
That's right. If you're working on something and you're like, I just don't know what pickups to put in here, give me a call, give me an email. I answer emails, calls pretty quickly. Or if you want to get a hold of me on the social medias, Brandon Wong Pickups.
There you go. Boom. You can shoot me an email, todd@theguitarknobs.com, or DM me on Instagram. We love hearing your thoughts, your stories, and also send us your would you rathers like we read tonight from Jonathan Dudzik. So much obliged. We hope everybody really enjoyed this episode. Huge thanks to Jared and Tony and Eric for doing it with me tonight. And
my pleasure.
Make sure you go back and check out some of those episodes we referenced to, everybody. And if you listened to this and ended up acting on it in some way, getting some piece of gear or whatever, for Pete's sake, share it with us so we know how this is going for everybody, okay? Have a fantastic guitar week and subscribe!
Yeah. We're doing a thing in a, what do you call it? Eric, my man.
What's up?
It's Jared.
Okay.
It's Jared.
It can't be me.
It is you.
Just have Todd somehow erase it.
Oh, yeah. I'll just Photoshop it.
Yeah.
And I will take you there and beat you with a sock full of batteries if you don't shut it.
What kind of betters?
Right, with the thing. Come on, it was funny.
Nope, I'm not doing it. We're not. No, that's no.
I got my whatchamacallits on. I was just trying to be funny.
No. It's that didn't work. So we're gonna
what did they use on it back then? Something. What's it called, Tony Baloney? It is funny, dang it.
A little slower if you can stand it, Todd.
Yeah. Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/theguitarknobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, 4 on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.